Yo guys, it's Hart. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a 7-game NBA slate breakdown here on DraftKings. You guys know the deal. Going to be talking through the players I like, the players I don't like, kind of doing a game-by-game breakdown. Early look preview for this slate, early look player pool as well. As always, the injury news does change the entire slate, so make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Let's get right into this. Recording this super early. The first game for tonight, Monday night, has just, I think they just finished the first quarter there. The Pistons in the Hornets. So recording this super early. So let's just get right into it. Obviously, some of these teams are playing tonight. So obviously there could be injuries that does affect this breakdown, but obviously recording super early, so don't know. But jumping into this first game here, Philadelphia versus the Knicks. The Knicks have been involved in just two super gross games. So wouldn't be surprised if this is just a slow and ugly game. But I do like targeting it. Maxey is back. 8.8K, clear concussion protocol. I expect him to be back to his normal minutes, no sort of minutes limit. So I think we can expect close to 40 minutes from him. As you can see, he's going to shoot the ball at least 15 times, if not more, in a close and competitive game. I think it's a very solid play here against the Knicks, even though it's going to be probably a slow and gross game. And with him back, that's obviously a huge kind of blow to guys, these secondary guys. I mean, with him out, it was kind of spread around in terms of the offense. We had, Kelly Oubre kind of leading the team. Obviously, Tobias Harris was there. They had Buddy Hield. They had Kyle Lowry, Campaign. Now with Maxey back, it really takes Campaign out of contention. I mean, he's 5.1. He's still probably going to play mid-20s minutes off the bench, but, you're going to have Maxey out there kind of dominating the offense, followed by Tobias Harris, and then maybe, Buddy Hield and Kelly Oubre kind of being those secondary guys. So, it really lowers the interest in a guy like Campaign, really lowers the interest in a guy like Kyle Lowry, who I would assume still starts, but I do think he's going to kind of go back to his Miami Heat ways where he starts, maybe sees 30 minutes, but he's not going to be super aggressive and just becomes a very risky play at 5.5K. Buddy Hield's just been god awful. I mean, just hasn't been great fantasy point wise. So not a lot of interest in this team besides kind of the two guys at the top, Tobias, Maxey for me, and that's really it. The center situation is kind of interesting. They kind of been flirting between, Bamba and Paul Reed, but I just don't think there's enough there for me. Paul Reed's been fine, but as you can see, the minutes have not been great. He's one of those guys who's super productive in the minutes he does play, but hard to trust that. Really just stick with the two main guys, kind of move on if you're looking to target Philadelphia. Moving on to the Knicks here. On the Knicks side, the big news is that OG might be back. And with him coming back, I would assume there's going to be some sort of minutes limit. Now we do have to wait for official news, but if that's the case, whether it's 20, 25, 30, it does take a hit to the production of the guys like Hart, DiVincenzo. You could even say like Achua and Hartenstein when it comes to rebounds. OG's a solid rebounder. I expect him to be more involved with that. I expect him to be pretty aggressive offensively as well. So maybe a little bit less shot attempts for a guy like Dante, Josh Hart, but I still expect Brunson to get his, still play 40 minutes, shoot the ball close to 20 times here or there. And then that secondary score, I think, is up for grabs between Dante and OG. I still think Dante's going to be super aggressive. Does make him a little bit riskier at 6.9K with OG coming back, but still, I think he's a fine play. Hart, I mean, we know he's just going to play a ton of minutes. So even though with OG back, maybe takes his shot attempts down, maybe takes his rebounding attempts down a little bit, I still think he's a fine play just because he's playing damn near the whole game. And then OG, it really depends on if there's a minutes limit. Now, if there's a minutes limit, I don't think I'm going to get to him. But if for some reason there's not, I think he's going to be a very strong play. And then when it comes to Precious, it's just, offensively, he's just not shooting the ball a ton, not heavily involved offensively. I mean, he's playing solid minutes the past two games, but I'd really just stick with Brunson and Josh Hart and DiVincenzo, maybe OG, depending on if there's a minutes limit or not. Moving on to Washington here versus Memphis. Absolutely disgusting. We're getting to the part of the season, the end of the season where there's teams that have absolutely nothing to play for. They have all their main stars injured, and they're just signing the most random people in the world to 10-day contracts. Anyone coming off the street could possibly get a 10-day contract. So if you're looking to make it to the NBA, I would suggest you go to Memphis because you might get yourself a nice, I think it's $200,000 for a 10-day contract, something crazy like that. But yeah, Washington, Memphis, great game environment to target. Kuzma, priced down to 8,000. I think that's very solid, as you can see. I mean, close game. Another one of those guys going to play 40 minutes, shoot it a ton. It's just pretty solid at 8,000. Denny, he's been getting a lot of ownership recently. I mean, it's fine. I mean, he's been rebounding the ball at an insane clip, 11, 7, 14, 10. He's been really solid there. Been efficient shooting the ball as well. Minutes are good. So I think Denny's a fine play. I just don't love 7,000 for him when hasn't been too aggressive offensively, even though we know he does have that double-double / triple-double upside. Poole off the bench, priced up to 6.7K. I think that's fine now. Like, it's not like he's priced at 6,000 where it made sense to play him pretty much every slate until he got priced up. That almost $7,000 coming off the bench. I think it's just a fine play. Nothing too crazy there. Tyus Jones is always kind of that random GPP play. As you can see, has the ability to go for 45, and then as you can see, he has the ability to get benched in just fantastic spots. So risky play, but we know there's a ceiling there. Bagley's still out. Kispert got the start last game. If he starts again, I think he's a solid play. But if he's coming off the bench, don't like him at 5,000. Holmes priced up to 4.7. One of those things. If he starts at center and he's good to go, I still think the minutes are kind of in question. Especially if Memphis wants to go small, they got nothing to play for. So Holmes could see his minutes kind of float between 15 and 25. I do think it's a little bit risky at 4.7. That's really it. Don't have much interest in kind of Bilal or Amourier right now. Moving on to Memphis here. Triple J looks like he's going to be out. Same thing with Vince Williams. So we'll probably get, Gigi, Santi, Goodwin, Jake, and probably Kennard starting again. So as you can see, there's a ton of value that's going to be opening up and good for the Memphis side. Your best plays are probably going to be Gigi Jackson. He was kind of the main guy there. Shot at 19 times that last game. I think LaRavia, kind of the similar situation. I do expect him to shoot the ball a little bit more. Now, it was a massive blowout against OKC. I would have liked to see a little bit more minutes out of him, but I think we can kind of expect close to 30 minutes. One of those guys who is able to get rebounds. As you can see, he had 2 double games there, especially with Triple J being out. There should be more rebounds to go around, and they want to see him. I mean, he hasn't really played. I think he's been on the team for the 3rd season now. He hasn't played much just because of injuries and them being pretty good, so he didn't really have much traction, but he's a good shooter, and he's pretty aggressive. So I think right now, I'll just throw him in there. I'll obviously throw Gigi in there. I think Santi's a pretty decent play. Would just like him to be more aggressive recently. Goodwin, if he's good to go and he's going to start, or if he's coming off the bench, I think he's a fine play. Luke Kennard's very hard to trust just because he's kind of a veteran a little bit. I mean, he's been in the league for a bit, but in one of these spots where he's been injured a lot, not playing for anything this season, I don't know if they're going to go crazy with his minutes. But I think he's always in play at 5,000 just because he's a pretty good 3-point shooter. And it's more so one of those things, we got to see who's good to go. Like maybe it looks like Scotty's doubtful. Conchar there, questionable. He could be back. They do have Dejan Jaru. He played it pretty solid there against OKC. So there's a good amount of interest here in kind of these, cheapish guys on the Memphis side, these 10-day contract guys. But moving on to Indiana versus OKC here. Halliburton has just been so disappointing for me. I keep pressing play on Halliburton, and 47-48 is fine, but he's just not having that upside we saw like pre-injury. Now the injury, I guarantee, is still affecting him a little bit, but it's not like we're seeing the 55, 60, 70 plus upside that he had at the beginning and midway through the season. But still, I always like looking on him. That 9,000 for a guy who can easily go for 20-20 is a really strong play. Siakam's always interesting in GPPs, should play mid-30s minutes. He's actually been pretty solid alongside Halliburton. And if Halliburton has a good game, especially assist-wise, you would expect some of these other guys to kind of step up and hit some shots. Turner, another one of those guys. It's just hard to trust his offensive production, but he's always fine in GPPs if you do land on him. Naismith played 37 minutes, which is nice to see. So I actually have some interest in him there at 5.4. That's really it. TJ McConnell had a huge game that last game. 38.5 fantasy points. You can't really trust that. And then in terms of these value guys, Ben Shepherd would probably be an interesting one alongside, not Isaiah Jackson. Meant to click on Jalen Smith, who was questionable. But that's really it. I'd really just stick with going with Halliburton, maybe Siakam, and that's it. Moving on to a OKC here. On the OKC side, obviously SGA is always a fantastic spend up. Chet's always an interesting GPP play. Hasn't been the best the past few games. Obviously, that last game was a huge blowout against Memphis, but we know he has 50 plus upside. He had a nice little streak there, 4 or 5 games in a row, 40 or more. So I think Chat is a decent play here against Indiana. Williams is questionable. I think he's doubtful. They really said nothing about his injury status, so I don't know if he plays. I would assume they start Cason Wallace in place of him, or maybe even Aaron here. So we could get some value there. And a guy like Kendrick Williams would also be another guy I'd interest in value. But once again, they do have a ton of people they could play. So really hard to trust any of these guys. I mean, Isaiah Joe, another one of those 3-point guys who hits a couple of shots, could be value. So those are some options. But once again, I really just stick with the main two guys here, and that's it. Moving on to Houston here versus the Spurs. For the Houston side, Sengun obviously out. I would assume they're going to start Jock Landale, who's priced up to 4.8. We've seen in similar spots this season where Jock's got the start, only kind of played 20 minutes or so. So it seems like Houston's kind of set on not giving him full run. So it does make him risky, but I still think he's a fine, played 4.8. I think it's more so of a boost to obviously these other guys. Playmaking boost to a guy like Fred VanVleet. Offensive boost to a guy like Jabari Smith Jr., who's probably my favorite target alongside Fred to kind of take over the offensive load without no Sengun. So I do like Fred here in this spots, and I do really like Jabari Smith Jr. I think, Thompson is going to be an interesting, play that's probably going to be super popular at 4.9. Don't mind him if you land on him. Same thing with, I was going to say Cam Whitmore, but it looks like he's going to be out. So I would assume I wouldn't be surprised if Thompson comes in as the most owned on this team with no Sengun, just because a lot of people love him, and he's been decently productive as well. So I don't mind it 4.9, but offensively, it's really just going to be on Fred's shoulders, Jabari Smith, and obviously Jalen Green. But I think Jalen Green's a little bit too pricey for me at 7.8, especially when you do have Fred there as kind of the main ball handler. So that's kind of my thoughts there. On to the Spurs side. For the Spurs side here, Victor's playing tonight, so there could be a possibility that he sits for this game tomorrow. Obviously, that's the case. Then we're going to want to look to a guy like Zach Collins, and then we could, if you wanted to get a little bit riskier, you could look to a guy like Barlow, who would be kind of filling up those, the backup center minutes, probably play anywhere from like 10 to 20 minutes, depending if there's foul trouble for Collins. Obviously, has a chance to go for a little bit more. But if there is Victor, obviously Victor looks fantastic. Vassell is going to be kind of the main leading scorer for them, main point guard, ball handler at 7.5 in the starting unit. He's fine if you want to get difference. He usually doesn't really carry much ownership, and that's really it. It's really just dependent on Victor if he's good to go or not. Moving on to Boston here versus Utah. Boston's playing tonight. Could get a chance where people like Porzingis are back, not playing tonight. A guy like Holiday is out as well, so these guys could be back for this game tomorrow. We could get like a Brown or Tatum sitting. They can kind of rotate them in or out. So we'll have to wait and see. But I would assume that we're going to get at least, I would assume Porzingis and Holiday are going to be back. And with that in mind, the front end of the back-to-back, they'll be back tomorrow. I would assume they're all going to be fully healthy. As I said, now I'm rambling. Tatum and Brown, one of them could be out. But anyways, back to the point. In terms of all of them being healthy, fully good to go, no one's really coming in at a good price tag. I think, Porzingis, Tatum, Brown are all fine plays, even White, but that's about it for Boston. They're always kind of priced about right, so it's really hard to really land on someone with, full confidence. They're really just in a good spot, really good spot against Utah, but it's just hard for this, trust this game to stay close, and it's hard right now to see or know who's going to be starting in that starting five. Utah side here, once again, no Laurie, no Hendricks. Sexton at 7.3. Minutes have gone up, which you do like to see. So I think he's a fine play there at 7.3. I like Keontae George, 6.5. Once again, the minutes should be there, and he's been super, super aggressive now that there's been no Laurie, more shot attempts to go around. So I think those two are your best bets on this team here. You could land on Collins. I just don't love the matchup here or the price tag for him. A guy that does kind of struggle at times. Kessler off the bench, or if he does start, I think is an interesting GPP option. We know he's massive upside with the blocks. That's really it. Sensabaugh has been getting some run at 4.7. Same thing with Don, but I just don't have interest in those guys. I think there's going to be better value that does open up. Moving on to Milwaukee here. Giannis is going to be questionable, but he should be good to go. Middleton might be back as well, which is kind of big news. So let's wait and see about that, because if that happens, then obviously it takes any considerations for guys like, Bobby, Brook, it does kind of lower the floor a little bit for a guy like Dame and Giannis. Nothing too crazy. I would expect maybe 20 minutes or so from Middleton, maybe even 15. So it's not like it's going to eat into the minutes a ton. But with him back, it does kind of mess up the pecking order. And with that possibility, let's say he is back, I really still just only focus on Dame and Giannis. And even if he's out, it's going to be the same thing. Dame and Giannis are probably my only priorities. You could get to Bobby. He actually has been pretty solid recently. But obviously, you'd wish that if you're going to get to Bobby, you really want Dame or Giannis, one of them, to be out. And then Brook Lopez, always a GPP play. Minutes have not been great. He's just not shooting the ball a ton, as you can see. He's averaging like under 8 shot attempts, more closer to probably like 7. So yeah, it's hard to trust him, but he's there. Moving on to the Kings here. Sabonis, Fox, Monk, all really, really strong plays. Murray, if you want to get risky, another one of those guys. He's on another really, really bad cold streak. I mean, as you can see, he does have upside if he hits his shots. So I don't mind him at 5.5K. It just depends if he plays or not. If he's out, I would assume they slide a guy like... I would assume they slide Duarte into starting 5. I mean, they've kind of done that throughout the season. That happens at 3,000. I think he's fine, even though, he's not guaranteed to see more than like 20 minutes. A lot of times, they have been playing him like anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 at most. Not heavily involved, but at 3,000 does open up some salary relief. And if he does hit a couple shots, gets to 15, 20 fantasy points, that'd be way more than enough at 3,000. I always mention Trey Lyles, one of those guys playing solid minutes off the bench. Not super productive because obviously right now, offense is really just flowing through these 3 main guys, but he's there. And then moving on to this last game here, Minnesota versus LAC. Minnesota obviously going to be pretty chalky here. Anthony Edwards looks like a really, really strong spin up. Going to shoot the ball a ton. Another one of those guys going to shoot the ball 20 plus times, play about 40 minutes. No Towns. I'd expect Gobert to be back. With him back, I mean, he's been playing big minutes with no Cat. He's pretty much been playing 40 minutes, so he looks like a really, really strong play here against the Clippers. Naz Reid, expect him to be the power forward. He's been super aggressive. That last game went for 17 shot attempts, 44 fantasy points against the Lakers in that last game. So I think he's a decent play at 7,000. I think he's priced about right. That's really it for me. Now, if Kyle Anderson's out once again, and they do start NAW alongside McDaniels, sure, you can get to these guys. They'll play decent minutes, as you saw. NAW almost played 40, and at 4.8, I think he's a fine play there. Nothing too crazy. And if Monte Morris is good to go, I like taking a shot on him at 4.2. He should see anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. If there's no minutes limit, now the possibility is he could even get more run if he's playing well off the bench, because they really don't have any scorers off the bench. If he's out once again, we could look to a guy like McLaughlin, who put up a solid fantasy point performance at 21.5 fantasy points at 3.9, 21 minutes is kind of the backup guard for them. And Warren did see some run there, 23 minutes off the bench there. So McLaughlin and Warren were kind of the 2 main guys off there, 2 main guys for them there off the bench when there was no Morris and when Kyle Anderson was rolled out. So that's kind of the plays there. And then for the Clipper side, Kawhi is questionable, Paul George is questionable, but they should both probably be good to go here in the spot against the Timberwolves. Obviously, you always keep your eyes peeled, but with a fully healthy team here, I'd really just take a shot on Kawhi and Harden. I don't really love the price tags either, just because it's like, why are you playing them? It's like you can play just a little bit more for guys who have just guaranteed more minutes, more opportunity. So I think they're just okay secondary options. Zubac is probably the most interesting to me, just because, going up against Gobert, they're going to need Zubac's size. One of those guys who can easily smash in like mid-20s minutes. So he's probably the most interesting to me. That's probably it. That is the slate breakdown. Hope you guys liked the video. I will have my core plays updated on my Patreon link down below about 10 to 15 minutes before the slate locks tomorrow. And I mean, we do have a good amount of injury news to kind of wait for to mention. We have that Giannis news. We do have to wait kind of for the Clippers news. Obviously, Boston, there could be some new interesting news there. It depends on who plays tomorrow, as well as the Victor news. And obviously who's going to start for Memphis. So could be another crazy slate. Hope you guys liked the video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.